After the relatively light partners in crime, the fourth series jumps straight into the meaty material with episode 2, presenting the Doctor with a serious moral dilemma right in the midst of a major historical event. Landing in Pompeii on the eve of the volcanic eruption that would claim 20,000 lives, placing the Doctor and Donna in a bit of a moral crisis. Can the Doctor and Donna just walk away and leave all these people to die? As plots go, this one is particularly strong right off the bat. Of course, we know the Doctor can't really change history. The main reason the Doctor can't change history is because the show needs to remain at least somewhat grounded on modern day Earth, and that at least it needs to stay relatable. Davies has invested so much time in developing a world around the Doctor and Donna that he's not just going to wipe it all out by allowing the Doctor to craft large-scale alternative histories, worlds that will look and feel markedly different from the world inhabited by the viewer. This, of course, is one of the reasons that Davies decided not to destroy New York and the Stolen Earth, accepting that Stephen Moffat would probably want to have some episodes set in a world where one of the most iconic cities on the planet has not been wiped out by a bunch of homicidal pepperpots. And of course, Moffat would go on to make retconning the fact that the world has been invaded by homicidal pepperpots during the fifth season anyway, because that sort of thing would also lead to an unrecognisable version of reality. And to be fair, there's a fairly compelling reason why the Doctor shouldn't be allowed to rewrite history on his or her own whims. After all, that would make him just as oppressive and restrictive as the regimes they topple and the dictators they depose. What gives the Doctor the moral authority to decide that people would be better in their version of history played out? Who is he to decide who should live and who should die? It's no coincidence that the fires of Pompeii is a similar naming convention to the waters of Mars, which exists as an inversion of this story. This episode is a tragedy about the cost of upholding and enforcing the integrity of history. The Waters of Mars in the specials is a cautionary tale about the consequences of violating that integrity. Here the Doctor is unable to change the course of history. In the Waters of Mars he presumes to have the authority. It's worth noting that this hubris is a theme of Davies' Doctor Who. In Bad Wolf it was pointed out that the Doctor never sticks around to watch humanity emerge from the rubble that he's left behind. In last series The Sound of Drums, it's explained that the Doctor's decision to topple Harriet Jones allowed the Master to conquer the planet. It's the 10th Doctor's decision to rewrite history in the Waters of Mars, to change the very course of events, that signals perhaps it's time to move on, and marks the end of his incarnation. But we'll get to that in time. So all this plays out and is arguably set up for the future, in the background of the fires of Pompeii, which admittedly adopts more of a nuanced position. Ignoring the moral questions about toppling governments or imposing his own view of society, what if the Doctor prevented a natural disaster? What if the Doctor intervened to prevent a massive loss of life in a way that didn't involve superimposing his own morality over the world? What if he actually saved Pompeii? It's a tough question, and the fires of Pompeii never really has an answer. It's repeated quite a lot over the course of the episode, and it's gutsy to see the show willing to tackle the big idea. We could get everyone out easy, Donna pleads with him. Yeah, the Doctor curtly replies, except we're not going to. Donna doesn't really understand this, but that's what you do. You're the Doctor, you save people. And all the Doctor can offer is a half-hearted excuse. Not this time. Pompeii is a fixed point in history. What happens, happens. There's no stopping it. This naturally raises a valid point. What is a fixed point in history? How come Pompeii is one, but the Sontaran invasion isn't? The answer, of course, is narrative necessity, and the fires of Pompeii basically concedes the point. When the Doctor insists it is one such fixed point, Donna asks the logical question, says who? The Doctor replies, says me. It's a fixed point because it's a dramatic necessity that it has to be a fixed point. That's the biggest leap this episode asks the audience to make, and then it hangs out the rest of the drama around it. To be fair, the script doesn't shy away from the logical questions raised by this plot point. But I'm history to you, Donna protests. You saved me in 2008, you saved us all. Why is that different? Once again the Doctor reiterates, some things are fixed, some are in flux. Pompeii is fixed. As such, it's next to impossible for the fires of Pompeii to offer a dramatically satisfying conclusion to an argument that consists of Donna questioning the Doctor about the logic that it's hard to rationalise within the plot, but is necessary for the story to function. So writer James Moran throws in several twists around that, allowing the show to avoid the larger questions, one that would dangle in the air until Davies circled it back in the Waters of Mars. First of all, the fires of Pompeii is a cracking entertainment pseudo-historical, with some absolutely lavish set design, and a sense that the show is really branching out from where it has gone before. Given the BBC's skill with period productions, I'm surprised that Revived Doctor Who has tended to limit itself to British and American history. Venturing a bit further afield gives the fires of Pompeii a distinctive feel, and wow does it impress. Writer Moran, with a fair bit of input from RTD, does an excellent job blending this with the show's excellent science fiction aesthetic. Lava monsters with heads that look like Greco-Roman helmets are an inspired touch, so too are the stone circuit boards. The decision to treat the episode's Pompeii family as something from a BBC sitcom leads them to a quirky humanity, demonstrating why Davies' riff to play up modern relationship dynamics and riff on family setups in historical and future settings works so very well. However, the real kicker comes towards the end of the episode, when Moran skillfully readjusts the episode's driving question. It's impossible for the show to offer a satisfactory answer to why would the Doctor let thousands of innocent people die, when the reason amounts to because the script says so. However, Moran rephrases the question so it becomes, why would the Doctor be an active participant in the deaths of thousands of people? A weighty ethical question that has a much clearer answer, because it's the lesser of two evils. And once again, the Fires of Pompeii seems like something of the nexus of Davies' era Doctor Who, as we find ourselves replaying the Parting of the Ways. An alien menace threatens to consume the planet, and the only way the Doctor can stop them is to commit an act of mass murder. Even the plunger mechanism looks somewhat similar. The use of the plunger imagery is quite inspired and clever, actually. The Doctor only needs to apply the same pressure that rests upon his shoulders, taking a moral plunge, literally, himself. This is where the Fires of Pompeii becomes something truly exceptional. It's about the Doctor and his relationship to history, but it's also the importance of the companion. The Ninth Doctor faced the Daleks down alone in the climax of the Parting of the Ways. He lacked the strength to continue any sort of resistance, to repeat the same sacrifices he had made before. Here, Donna is able to help the Doctor carry that weight. She's able to place her weight on the plunger alongside the Doctor. Series 4 really pushed Donna as its Doctor's equal, rather than simply an assistant or a supporting character. In their first pseudo-historicals, Martha and Rose both asked about the consequences of changing history, but more as a technical point than anything else. Their questions and answers in stories like The Unquiet Dead and the Shakespeare Code, respectively, were functional and instructional, but not like this. Here, Donna's questions are less about the basics of how time travelling works, and more about the moral implications, less of what and how, but more like why. Rose and Martha might object to some of the Doctor's decisions, but neither will call him or challenge him so readily. In the first post-credits scene, the Doctor tries to order Donna back to the TARDIS, but she won't listen. He tries to assert his authority over her, but it just doesn't work.
But that's what you do. You're the Doctor. You save people.
Not this time. Pompeii is a fixed point in history. What happens, happens. There is no stopping it.
Says who?
Says me.
What, and you're in charge?
TARDIS Time Lord, yeah.
Donna Human, no! I don't need your permission. I'll tell her myself.
It's worth noting he falls back on his familiar implied "I will kick you out of the My Magic Blue Box if you don't play by my rules" threat he downgrade over Rose, and particularly Martha in their early adventures. Donna is, quite awesomely, having absolutely none of it. Later on, Donna specifically draws attention to the fact that she is the only companion in the Revive series who dared to call him out, possibly owing to her own life experience. "Listen, I don't know what sort of kids you've been flying around outer space with, but you're not telling me to shut up," she bluntly tells him, making it clear that the dynamic between the Doctor and Donna is distinctive from whatever came before. That boy, how old is he? 16, and tomorrow he burns to death. When the Doctor asks if that's his fault, Donna refuses to let him off the hook. Right now, yes. Also worth noting is the way that the show seems to be pushing Donna as a female goddess to the Doctor's lonely god. This is the second episode in a row to mention Venus as a female god. In Partners in Crime, Wilf pointed out that Venus was the only planet in the solar system named after a woman. Here, Donna jokingly compares herself to the goddess Venus. Little dialogue touches like this are great, of adding a continuity to the series, but also a subtle way of hinting at underlying themes. Something Russell T seems to be able to do masterfully, and it's just great. There is Something on Your Back is also quite fun, but a lot more overt and blunt. I do think the fourth series holds together much better than any other David Tennant series because there's a clear consistency of vision and structure, rather than just merely repeated arc words and in-jokes. Even the other arc word of the series, the Medusa Cascade, is a reference to another female mythological creature, putting Donna in context. And again, the fourth series holds up particularly well on rewatch because it manages to foreshadow and set up a lot of things that are coming up, not just in a mechanical "the bees are disappearing" or "that's another planet gone" sort of way, but in a larger "these are the big ideas of the season" manner. The endings of this episode and the next episode, Planet of the Ood, are quite jarring on first watch. The Doctor and Donna, immortalised as household gods, are in a song echoing through eternity. However, watching them again helps to remove some of the sting from Journey's End. Catherine Tate really proves herself here, and she's capable of carrying the dramatic weight that the show really needs, as well as the comedic side of things. As much as it might be fashionable to criticise casting a high-profile comedian as a long-season companion, there is never any doubt that Tate had the comedic timing to carry off the show's sense of humour. The Runaway Bride was a convincing hour-long audition tape for David Tennant, and nobody watching Partners in Crime could be too surprised when the pair had natural comic chemistry. However, Tate is also a formidable dramatic actress, and The Fires of Pompeii allows Tate to demonstrate her absolutely fantastic range. Donna is more than just a collection of stereotypes or gags or broadly drawn cliches. She might not have a particularly developed home life that is well developed as Rose of Martha, but she's still a real person. Her reaction of abject horror to the fate of all people in Pompeii feels entirely natural and entirely in character, and arguably provides one of the show's strongest demonstrations of what a companion is meant to do. Donna anchors the Doctor. She provides a very human scale to his travels. The Doctor sees the big picture. He sees fixed moments in the very moment of history itself. The companion sees the little things, providing him with a window into humanity. The Doctor knows he can't save Pompeii, but Donna understands that he has to save somebody. It's quite similar to the way that Moffat would characterise the 11th Doctor's relationship with Amy. She allows him to see the wonder he might otherwise miss. It's also clear that the revived Doctor is getting to the point where it can play with its conventions and core concepts, rather than firmly establishing them. The rules have been set out, and it seems the show trusts the audience are familiar enough with the framework that it can mess around with it a bit. Using time travel as a vehicle for a big ethical quandary rather than the convenient stakes is the most obvious example, but Donna plays with the show's internal logic when she asks about the TARDIS's translation matrix tool as well. Martha and Rose took the plot device for granted, accepting that it's just so the audience can understand whatever these aliens or foreign humans were saying. Donna, on the other hand, decides to ask more questions. When the Doctor responds while she's speaking in Latin, she immediately responds, "What if I said something in natural Latin like Veni Vidi Vici?" It's an illogical, nitpicky fan question, the kind of thing that most casual viewers would never ask. However, the fourth series seems to be the point where Doctor Who is entirely comfortable with itself, so it can ask these silly little questions. There are also a few nice and completely coincidental calls forward as well. Guest starring Karen Gillan and the fantastic 12th Doctor himself, Peter Capaldi, is the only episode of Doctor Who to feature a guest appearance from both a future Doctor and a future companion in different roles. It's weird to look back at this episode and see both faces in the same place, even if they do belong to radically different parts of the Moffat era. It's strange, yet equally rather fitting at the same time. Another thing I must comment on is the fabulous work that composer Murray Gold produces in this episode, and of course the series as a whole. It's a real step up once more from the previous series, and some truly iconic tracks come from this series, more of which I shall point out in my further reviews. Overall, The Fires of Pompeii is a pretty spectacular episode, and one that really demonstrates just how strong the fourth series promises to be right out the gate. It's full of powerful and extremely memorable moments that really elevate this episode beyond the normal comprehension. I give The Fires of Pompeii an 8.5 out of 10.